welcome back to the channel. So I picked up my upper radiator hose today. This is a radiator hose for a 90 to 93 Integra 1.8 liter, which is the GS, LS, and RS. It is a Dayco hose. The Dayco part number is 71127. So if you guys are looking for a hose, this is the hose to get. All we have to do is cut it a little bit shorter and it will fit perfectly. I've already taken a quick look at it to see how well it matches up, and it matches up perfectly fine. Now, we're going to install this hose today, as well as top the engine up with fluids, and potentially we can fire up this engine. I don't have the exhaust stuff set up yet. We still have to cut and re-weld the flanges, but that doesn't prevent us from actually starting up the vehicle today. So we'll get to installing this, and then we can top up the fluids, and then we're ready to fire it up. All right, like the lower hose, we're going to be using the similar clamps. We'll use this T-clamp like this. We'll actually flip it around like this, and then it would just have the bolt up here, and it'll clamp down onto the flange there. And then this is a worm style clamp for silicone hoses, which we'll use for this one, just to clamp it all the way tight. It does sit a little bit loose on there. So for example, it's both the same kind of diameter, so you can see it's pretty loose. So we have to clamp this a little bit tighter so that the hose just holds in place. That's how we have to do it with these kind of radiators, because this is bigger than this, and this should match that, but won't match this. Other people have mentioned that you could use a Integra radiator, but I think keeping it stock like this is fine. It works completely fine. So I'm just gonna peel this sticker off, and then we're gonna shove this thing in here, and then we might be able to just chop it. Actually, I might not even have to peel the sticker off, because we could just cut it and the sticker portion will just come right off. So we're pretty close there. I would give it a little bit of wiggle room and cut it right about here, maybe. So it's always best to cut little bit by little bit, just in case you mess up. So I will measure it out, just give myself a little bit more room. So pretty much up to the sticker, and then once it pushes down, yeah, we'll probably need to cut it a little bit further up. I would say like right about here would be right, but that's pretty close to the sticker. So I'm just gonna peel the sticker off, and then we can slice it. There we go. There you go. I think that's perfect. We've cut just enough. Now we can clamp these down. I'll bring you guys up close to have a look at it, but I think that looks pretty spot on. Yeah, take a look at that kink. It's all perfect. No significant kinks anywhere. The hose fits great. All right, guys, so that bolt right next to the axle there with a washer on it, that is the fill bolt. So we have to undo that and fill until the fluid leaks out of there. So I'm going to fill the transmission up with 1040. It's recommended 1030 or 1040, but I'm going with 1040 because I have a lot of that, because I was going to use it on the Y8 to conserve oil. But, you know, since I have a bunch of that, might as well use it, and it's recommended oil anyways. Alright guys, I managed to feed a funnel in there, so now we could just start filling it up until it starts leaking out. It has to be done on a level surface, by the way. Alright, as you can see, the transmission is leaking a little bit now. So it is full now. So I'm just going to jack up the car and put the drain plug or the fill bolt back. All right, with the oil, I'm going to run 5W30 because I've got the cheap stuff anyways. We're going to be changing this out after 500 kilometers just to break in the engine. So it's better to use something cheap so that we can just drain it later and not waste expensive oil. All right, while that's draining, let's set up the funnel kit so that we could start putting in rad fluid. And like I mentioned, I am going to be reusing the old rad fluid that I had, but I will filter it first. Alright, just gonna filter out my old radiator fluid using a paint strainer. Alright, so the bottom hose wasn't tight enough, so it started leaking down there, and I had to quickly take apart the bottom undercover panel and also pull the radiator fan off and all that stuff. So I guess first step is always check that radiator hose. So have your fluid kind of here, and then just flow some down there and see if it leaks before putting it all together. It takes a lot of time. I lost a lot of fluid. All right, guys, so now I'm just gonna prime the oil pump before I fire it up. So because there's no oil circulating in the oil pump because we cleaned it, we wanna prime it first. So how to do that is we're gonna be pulling off all the spark plugs. We're gonna pull the ECU fuse. We're gonna disconnect the distributor as well as all the fuel injectors. And then we're just gonna crank it over for 20 seconds. After that's done, we'll just reassemble everything. And then we are ready to actually fire it up for real. All right, that should be good. Now we'll put the spark plugs back on. All right, moment of truth. Let's fire it up. Alright guys, so I did check to see if there was spark on the number 1 cylinder, and there was no spark. So I think it was the jumper harness that I made that might have been wrong. I have since repinned it. It did look wrong when I did go through it. So now this should theoretically work. So we'll try it again, plugging it all together again, and then hopefully this fires up this time. All right, let's try this again. Oh wow, fired up right away. And no engine check lights at all either. That's awesome. Alright, still bleeding out the coolant. It's still bubbling. We haven't kicked on the fan yet. It's still waiting to kick on, so I'm just waiting for that to completely go on. And then we should be done bleeding the coolant. Wait for all the bubbles to boil out of there. But engine runs smooth and it sounds good. Alright guys, I made a huge mess. This took forever to actually take off. You see I had to actually cut the studs. The catalytic converter, the bolts and everything were just completely seized on there. It was very difficult to remove. I had a lot of difficulty even removing this end of this exhaust pipe. I didn't want to drop the whole exhaust, otherwise I have to drop the control arm and all that. So yeah, I tried to use these bolt extraction bits and it didn't work either. It just wouldn't unscrew. It actually stripped out one of these kind of sockets instead. So like this rusted stuff is actually really tough to remove. The only way is to really cut it off with the angle grinder, which is what I did. Now I'm in the process of actually measuring out the new catalytic converter, which is right over here. So essentially what I'm going to be doing is just chopping this end off and then putting this pipe back up and then seeing what angle I should rotate and weld this thing. So for now, I think this is where I'm at. I'm just gonna get everything done and I'll show you guys the completed catalytic converter. Alright guys, I've got this all marked up, and so I'm just going to connect these 3 lines onto this flange, and then we can just weld it, tack weld it, and then weld it fully together. Then maybe just get some high temp paint and just paint it, and we should be good. Everything's all measured out already. Alright guys, there's my new catalytic converter. As you can see, the flanges all meet up. I just put the bolts in there just to see, and I can reuse the hardware, but these springs are really tight to get on, so we'll have to rebolt that on after I paint the pipe. As you can see, this is not the prettiest of welds, and as I sanded it down a little bit to get rid of some of the spatter, it took off some of the coating, so obviously I'm going to need to get some paint and paint it. These are, I believe, aluminized steel, so it's basically steel with a coating of aluminum on it to prevent corrosion. However, you know, whoever made this cat didn't really paint the welds around wherever it's been welded anyway, so you can see there's like rust forming in all these other areas. So what I'm going to probably do is just paint the whole cat. So I'm just going to get some barbecue paint to do it, but as you can see, doesn't look too bad. Matches up with the exhaust and everything. It is a tight fit, so matches up perfectly. Alright guys, the catalytic converter is complete. I have shortened it by 2 inches. This is an Integra catalytic converter from a 94 to 2001 Integra. And so I shortened it 2 inches to match the old EF catalytic converter length, because that was the perfect length for this exhaust system. Then I clocked this flange the correct way while bolting everything up and just drawing marks and stuff, as you can see in the video. And then now I just finished painting it. So the welds aren't the prettiest. I did all flux core welding, but that took literally 5 minutes, and I was able to get a really good penetration and complete blending in. So as you can see, it's strong and there are no holes within it. So the catalytic converter is complete. However, I cannot reinstall the whole exhaust system. The reason being is the mid pipe for the Yanaka exhaust was taken off, and there was a gasket that holds the mid pipe to the rear section of the exhaust. Now that gasket is completely destroyed, so I'm gonna need to buy a new gasket for that exhaust system to be refitted. However, I don't want to go and buy a new gasket and wait for it to come and all that kind of stuff. So instead, we're gonna install my HKS Sport exhaust. So we're gonna be doing that in the next video. Alright guys, that's it for this video. We are officially B-swapped, so I hope this video helps you guys out. If you haven't already, please comment, like, and subscribe, and share my videos. As always guys, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.